Hello and welcome. Thank you everybody for your time today, this afternoon, whatever time it is in your part of the world. Today, what I'd like to share with you is the roadmap of Patronum. We've been working tirelessly towards the end of last year. We're still working on a number of big features that we're excited to announce and release over the next couple of months, weeks and months. And we wanted to share those with you so that we could help you make decisions on how to implement those particular solutions and features. So the first part of the presentation, we're going to be talking mainly about those particular improvements to the products, specifically improvements based on customer feedback. Then towards the end of the presentation, we're going to be talking mainly about some of the new features that we will be bringing to customers within Patronum. And I'm super excited to share what we're bringing later on this year. So with that, let me just go over the kind of statement just to let you know that obviously this is a roadmap session. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about, we may slip, we might move them down, we might bring them forward. So just please bear that in mind and don't crucify us if we don't release something when we said we would do. So first of all, like I mentioned, I'd like to talk about the product improvements. We get feedback from customers related to Patronum on a regular basis. Mainly customers are delighted by the platform and what we can offer at the price point that we have provided to the market. And so this particular section is we're going to cover features that we have added into the product improvements, typically based on customer feedback. So customers who are watching and listening to this particular session, these bits are for you. Okay, so policy management. When we first went to market with Patronum, we envisaged that organizations would have 10, 20, maybe 30 policies for things such as email signature management, sharing of contacts, adding and managing Google groups, etc. Part of the onboarding and offboarding process of a user working through a Google Workspace environment during the lifespan of that particular user. We didn't envisage in our wildest dreams that organizations would be creating hundreds, if not thousands of policies inside our system. And we're delighted to see the diverse usage of those policies. And so based on the feedback from customers, we've decided to build and add a more structured environment to our policies. Specifically around the folders within Patronum. So now we're introducing folders for policies where you can drop a particular policy into a folder and start to organize your policies based on maybe location, departments, etc. We're also going to be adding filters to Patronum's policy page and make them sticky. At the moment, the filters are only there for when you are interacting on that particular instance. What we will be doing is making those filters sticky for your account. So you may only be interested in, for the majority of the time, policies that are active. And so you would have the active policy filter and you'll be able to only see and interact those particular policies. You could obviously remove that filter and see all the policies. Okay, so sticking with policy management, another commonly requested feature has been the ability to terminate a running policy. We call this the big red button. And What has happened in the past is customers have initiated a policy and it's been running against a particular user, and they've realized that they've made a mistake with the policy and they want to press a big red button. The only way they've been able to do that to date is to contact our support agent, and the support agent has been able to manually override the policy through the back end systems that we have. We're bringing that functionality into the front so that administrators can quickly terminate and turn off a policy. So now policies that have been incorrectly configured or run by mistake can now be terminated so that the policy doesn't, potentially offboard a user that doesn't need to be offboarded, etc. Sticking with the theme of policies, there are a few smaller improvements that we've made, but each of these are equally as important. And I'll just like to go through each one of them one at a time and just kind of explain our thoughts behind what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why we're different from the other tools on the marketplace. Okay, so the first one here is the remove user from shared drives. Within an existing policy, we give you the ability when you are offboarding users to transfer the data from one user to another. You can do that manually in the Google console. What we also provide you the ability to do is to move that data automatically to a shared drive. Again, unique to Patronum. None of the other tools in this particular space are doing this. Some customers are retaining those accounts, whether that's in a suspended format or an archived format. And while one of the options in our offboarding policies is to remove access to files of those users, we are now adding the ability to remove the leavers access to shared drives. So users will now no longer have access to files and folders within the shared drive. We will go through the shared drive and we will remove the leavers access to those shared drives. Now, obviously, that's not going to be an issue if you are ultimately going to be deleting those accounts, but some organizations, for regulatory reasons, typically don't delete the accounts and they archive them, and you don't want to have lots of users having access to data in a shared drive, even if those accounts are archived. The other option here is what to do with those files that have been transferred. So again, one of the features within Patronum is to move the data from the leaver into a shared drive. Now that shared drive may be shared with the HR department, and it's a central location where all archived data goes. Because of the way that we are transferring that particular information, those files will still be shared with the original users that have been shared on those files. So work can continue to take place on those files. This particular feature, where we are now giving access to those files to other users, can now grant access to, let's say, the manager. So let's go through the scenario. A user leaves the organization. Their data is transferred through to a shared drive where only the IT department or maybe only HR have access. What we are now giving you the ability to do is also grant the manager or other users access to that particular folder of the user, so that user can then be managed, or their data can then be managed by somebody who knows what the data is about. And so it can continue with the collaboration while also providing better management. The other option, while keeping in the theme of offboarding, is extracting the email from Google Vault. Again, we have our backup solution where every single email inside the organization is backed up, and when somebody leaves, you no longer pay for that particular backup license. yet you still have access to the email. If you don't have our backup solution, you may want to extract the data from Google Vault and move it to somewhere else in your cloud storage environment. We're giving you the ability to extract that email data and move it to somebody else, or move it to a central location, maybe a Google shared drive, etc. All of that information is not just the user's mailbox as it is today, because they may have deleted items. It is in fact the extract from Google Vault. So it's every email that that person has received and sent while they were covered by the Google Vault license. And then lastly, from a offboarding perspective, we're giving you the ability to decline the events. Now, you might think that that's kind of something that we should have done already. We are one of the only tools in the marketplace that just goes that extra level of depth when it comes to our integration with Google Workspace. When somebody leaves an organization, from a calendaring perspective, we will automatically remove the user from any appointments that individual user has been sent. So they will then no longer be in that appointment. And that's fantastic from an internal perspective. Now, we can't do that to appointments externally. So what we've decided to add is the ability to, in addition to removing the user from appointments, you can now also decline those events. So we allow you to decline internal events as well as external events. And so anybody who has sent you an appointment externally and that user is now leaving, they will then get a decline to their appointment, so that they're now no longer frustrated that they've turned up to have a meeting with somebody in your organization who's left and for whatever reason they forgot to tell you or tell that particular person. And then looking at the policies more broadly, we've got the anniversary-based filters. Now, we've decided to add this because we now have a lot of customers that are not only using Patronum for IT-related tasks, such as managing Google Groups, email signatures, shared contacts, etc. All the things that an administrator would do manually, we're automating those. What we're seeing is we're seeing customers take a policy and turn it into a HR process. So let me walk you through an example of what customers are currently doing with Patronum from a communication perspective. So they're using attributes in Patronum such as the start date, and they're triggering events based on that start date, both before and after the start date. And what they're doing is they're using the policies and our email templates to send emails to a new applicant who is joining the organization. As part of the registration process for that new applicant, they are taking the person's personal email address. Those details are then being saved in the Google directory under the email recovery details. We are then providing those organizations the ability to trigger an event, let's say 2 weeks before that person joins the organization, with a welcome email, details of their password, and how to log in when they join the organization. We can also email the individual user's manager. Again, maybe in a week's time, we email the manager to say, Paul's joining the organization, please can you prepare a desk, laptops, etc. And they'll be starting on this particular date. You can even go a step further by saying 6 months after the start date, let's set up a probationary period. So let's say we have a new employee called Sabrina. Sabrina's joined the organization, and 6 months after her probation date, an email can automatically be sent to both her and her manager to then say, your 6 months is now up. Please arrange a meeting with your manager to discuss the next stages in your employment in our organization. Based on those kind of things that customers have been doing, we've decided to add the anniversary option. And so you'll be able to run on a monthly, quarterly, every 6 months, however often you wish, an anniversary-based policy that can then trigger certain events. Maybe you want every 6 months to trigger a personal review, a personal development plan review. Those can automatically be configured inside the system. So again, it takes a lot of the HR tasks that a small business may want to do, but often doesn't, because they just tend to focus more on the day-to-day and they may skip particular things. With Patronum, again, we can bring these elements back into people's minds and automate those particular processes. And then the last two, very, very quickly, we will be adding the ability to detect if a particular user is downloading an excessive amount of files, or if they are copying an excessive amount of files. We can then trigger an event based on that particular action. Now that might be, we just email the manager, or it could be that we suspend the account temporarily while that particular action is investigated. And obviously all of these changes, there will be an improvement in the user interface of the policies, as we make things a lot clearer and a lot cleaner as we go through a refresh of our UI. Okay, so looking now at the alerts and logging environment. One of the areas that is not often utilized by customers is the alert section. Now, our alert section has a number of pre-configured reports that we and others outside the organization have suggested of things that a Google Workspace administrator would want to know about. And so instead of having a tool where you have to just keep constantly logging in and looking to see specific things, we are providing alerts based on those actions. So things such as who's not logged in for the past 30 days, 60 days, which users have been suspended that we haven't yet deleted, who's got two-step verification disabled, who's got IMAP configured. All these kind of things from a security perspective are automatically being queried via Patronum, and you can subscribe to those alerts. Additionally, we have things like the delegation access. Who's got delegate access to whose account? Who's forwarding emails internally, externally? Have we had any new shared drives created? And one that I find very important is, has anybody inside my organization received a external shared drive? Again, the potential of data theft or loss is greater when people are receiving external shared drives. And so with Patronum, we have this alert system, and we've discussed it with a number of our enterprise customers as to how we could improve that and how we could make it more useful for them. And so based off their feedback and the conversation that we've had, we have decided to add webhooks to our alerts environment. So you are now able to subscribe to those webhooks through Slack, Google Chats, or whatever application you wish, so that if something does get triggered, somebody does receive a new shared drive, you're not waiting or sifting through your emails, you're getting an alert, you're getting a pop-up in your chats, in your Slack channels that can then be actioned. Your Slack channel may be then configured to create tickets in your ticketing system. All these things are then possible, but we are surfacing this critical information so that you can take action immediately on those particular alerts. We will also be extending the alerts that we have in our environment. One of the areas that we are focused on more often now are files. And so one of the things that you can do inside Patronum is you can browse people's files. And one of the things that we've got is we log and audit every file interaction that the administrator is doing. However, it might be critical that you are alerted to when an administrator is browsing a specific user's file or a particular file with a label. So let's say, for example, the help desk have access to Patronum and they've been given the permission to browse users' files. And for whatever reason, somebody has decided to browse the CEO's file system. That should trigger an alert that they are performing a particular task that might not be necessary, and so it can be investigated and either treated as normal action or a disciplinary. In addition to that, we're also going to be looking at things around files, such as which files have been shared recently, who's been downloading which files and when, what are the most commonly accessed files. There is a huge list of file-based alerts that we will be adding. Now, maybe you're not going to subscribe to all of these alerts and you're going to just drop into Patronum on a regular basis to check them out because it's more information, but we will be building a huge set of reports and alerts inside Patronum as we flesh out our product throughout the course of this year. As I mentioned, with files, we're going to be looking more in the file management, specifically around the area of file governance and file sharing. So from an improvement perspective, there is a lot of interest in our file sharing capabilities. So just for those who don't know or don't understand what our file sharing features are, we give Google administrators the ability to see who has access to the data within their Google Workspace environment, both internally and, more importantly, externally. And individual administrators can come into this interface and they can unshare from particular users. They can unshare for users, or they can search for users based on a domain and then unshare from all the users within that particular domain. They can export the list of files that are shared externally. They can also modify that list of individual files and upload the modified file to then unshare individual files based on the upload. What we're now adding is the ability to go a little bit broader than individual files, is to go on a user by user basis. So you'll be able to export a list of the users that have access to your files and then decide whether or not you wish to just remove all of their access, change their access, or change specific permissions that they've got to a lower permission, and do that on a user by user basis. You could also do that on a domain wide basis. So let's say we've been collaborating with Company Co, and Company Co is no longer working with us. We want to sever our relationship with that organization. Going through each individual file would take a reasonable amount of time. We can now just add the domain, and we will then go ahead and unshare all the files that that particular organization has access in our environment. Okay, so in addition to the file unsharing, sharing features, we're also looking at some of the more obscure requests that we get from our customers. And there's nothing more frustrating than the Google Forms challenge, which we have now addressed in Patronum. So let me first of all describe the problem. You can create a Google form and a spreadsheet associated with it, and then publish that form. That form has a particular ID, and the majority of people will only see the ID of the form itself. They will not see the ID of the form builder. What you'll be able to do with Patronum is, using the ID of the form, you'll be able to find the original form builder that created that form. So now you're no longer struggling to find which user has created a particular form. You'll be able to use Patronum, find it, and then if that user no longer exists in the organization, or if they are suspended or terminated, you can change ownership of that form and then continue to update it and utilize it. The other area when it comes to searching is our file duplication locator. So we're looking at methods in which we can identify files that have been duplicated inside the system, and then providing those files to you. A great example that I've seen multiple times typically goes around either presentations or proposals, where a particular individual will take a presentation, make their own copy of that presentation, modify the presentation, and then present it to customers. That's fine while the two themes and styles match. But as the main presentation file is updated with new features, new styles, the copy is going to be out of date. It's going to look wrong. It's going to be off-brand. Through Patronum, you'll be able to find who's got copied versions of a particular file, and then you can identify those. You could delete them if you wish, or you could just contact them to say there's a new version of this particular file. And we're also going to be adding a lot more filters around the file sharing environment to provide you with a deeper insight and visibility over the data that you've got inside your organization. Okay, so all of that was features and improvements to the current feature set inside of Patronum. I'm now going to talk about brand new features that we are bringing to the platform. And these are where we get, well, I get really excited about. So the first one is our email authentication section. So over the past year or so, we've been looking at our customers. We've got about 2,000 customer domains inside the Patronum environment, and we did some research on those domains, and we found that out of the 2,000 domains that we checked, 30% of them had SPF misconfigured. They either had too many SPF records, or it just wasn't configured at all. We had about 40% of those organizations hadn't configured DMARC. And so if you've not got these things configured correctly, your email is less likely to be delivered. You might end up in the spam. And so out of all of our customers that we've been looking at, there's a high level of organizations that their general Gmail email will be delivered, but other emails from other systems that they're sending may not, and they may not even realize that. So we've partnered with a company called Redshift. They're based in the UK. Redshift are experts when it comes to DMARC, SPF, DKIM, and all the other email related standards. They work with organizations like Bitcoin.com, Domino's Pizza, ITV, the US government, Rentokil Initial, TUI, all the big brands use the platform when it comes to securing and monitoring their email delivery. What we're doing is we are embedding an element of the platform for free inside of Patronum. And once you configure your environment to utilize the Patronum email authentication mechanism, we will give you visibility over, is your SPF configured correctly? Who is sending emails on your behalf? And so as you can see here from the screenshot, we can see which environments or which systems have been trying to spoof your email. Now, we're not going to go super deep into this particular area. We think that Redshift provide an excellent service. So if you want to start mitigating those elements, then we can put you in contact with them, and you can explore the opportunities with them on making your environment even more secure. But we feel that we are giving organizations enough visibility to then start making some educated decisions. And as a Google Workspace administrator myself, I feel that this just gives me that level of confidence that we've got things set up correctly. Okay, so now the next main feature is all around what we call file sharing governance. So most organizations that use Google Workspace are sharing their files with outside organizations, outside of the company. It's very rare that an organization will turn off external sharing. They may set up allow lists where they only work with certain organizations, but again, that kind of setup is very rare. The majority of organizations have a open policy when it comes to collaboration. So that creates problems in itself. So first of all, there's a historical problem where people have forgotten who they've shared files with. Again, going back to the partner scenario, you can share files with a particular partner. That partner may now no longer be working with you and may well be working with a competitor. You might be sharing folders with outside entities, and that folder was set up for valid reasons. People have now forgotten that particular folder is shared externally, and they start dropping potentially confidential information into that folder. And then lastly, from a historical perspective, you can unshare files, but people don't. You can also set expiry dates, but very few people will do that. So over time, you are sharing more and more data. Again, there's no visibility of who's sharing which files with who. Through Patronum, obviously, we are providing you that visibility in our file sharing section, but we are now going an extra step further when it comes to dealing with the issue of external sharing. You've also got files that are shared with anyone with the link. Again, through the Patronum file sharing environment, you can undo that. You can do it manually. Organizations are also under constant scrutiny when it comes to things such as ISO 27001, HIPAA compliance, PCI, NIS2 is something that has been enforced, and quite a lot of organizations are struggling to understand what that means. There are solutions to bad or poor file governance, and that is to turn it off, turn off file sharing, but that's not a realistic option. You could set up expiry on the files, but again, it means you have to educate your users to use that, and it's a well hidden feature from Google, and it's not often used. And there's also the manual unsharing. You can use Patronum to do that from a manual perspective. And as I mentioned before, we're making that manual process a whole lot easier. You can do it in bulk. You can be very, very prescriptive. You can be very wide. But we feel that we should go an extra step further. And so what we are now doing is we are adding what we call file-based policies. So a file-based policy is a policy just like our onboarding and user-based policies. However, it's targeted and focused at the file level. With our policies, you'll be able to automatically unshare files based on who is sharing the file, how long has that file been shared for, and who is that file being shared with. We'll be able to fix the anyone with the link issues through a policy, and that can be done automatically. So there's now no longer a need to jump into Patronum in order to manually perform those tasks. We will make sure that files are no longer shared with the link. In addition to the unsharing of files, we're also looking at the movement of files. So a scenario could be that you want to move files from specific users' My Drive based on the age or the last modified. I know from personal experience that I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of files in my Google Shared Drive, and the majority of those haven't been touched for years. So why are they clogging up my Google Drive? Should we not be moving that to a different location and then ultimately archiving or deleting those particular files? Again, with a policy, we can move those files through different levels of offboarding. So we're almost offboarding files in the same way that we can offboard users. That then brings us into the file compliance section. It's all well and good to create a automated policy that looks at the files, who they're shared with, when were they shared, and then unsharing them. But often that isn't a realistic option for most organizations. You're going to get a revolt. You're going to get your users complaining that you've unshared files to particular organizations that they were currently working with or were going to be working with in the future. It's best to put the responsibility of those decisions in the hands of the user. And so that's where our file compliance section comes into play. With our file compliance section, you can create a policy based on exactly the same triggers that I've just discussed, but instead of performing an action to aggressively unshare the file, you can email the end user a list of the files that do not comply to that policy. They'll see a list of those files, and then with a simple click of their mouse, they'll be able to jump into Patronum and see the list of files that don't comply to that particular policy. And then the onus is on the end user to make that decision. Do I want to unshare these files? We're also going to give the end users the ability to snooze the files. Maybe I just haven't got the time to think about unsharing those files. So remind me in a week. Or maybe some of those files should always be external, and so they can be added to a safe list. Again, we're putting the responsibility into the hands of the end users. Now, sometimes you want a carrot and a stick. And so again, we will give you the option to have that as well. You can, through the policy, automatically unshare the files a number of days after the emails have been sent to the user. So let's say every Friday you send an email to the end users that say these files do not comply with our policy. The end user may then add a few of the files to a safe list, may snooze a couple of the files or interact with some of them, but then leave the rest. You could then have the option to automatically unshare the rest of those files 2 weeks later. So we think that we've got the best balance of being prescriptive while also giving control to the end users. And we're really excited about how this can impact the security of our Google Workspace customers. The release of this is imminent. It's going through the final testing. And so over the next, I would say, month, this particular feature will be released to all of our Patronum customers. Okay, so let's just look a little bit further into the future and talk mainly about calendars. So this is an area that we've had conversations with customers, and we want to help where we can with automations. So the first area is our room insights, where we've been talking to a number of government-based organizations, large media companies, typically organizations that have buildings, and typically organizations where their employees have now come back to the office and meeting rooms are becoming prime real estate. So imagine I have a meeting with one of our developers, let's call him Nikolai. Nikolai and I are then having a meeting, and I've booked for the two of us a meeting room that will accommodate 10 people. I've done that because it's right next door to my desk. We will be providing insights to show you and surface which individuals are booking rooms that are too big for them. We'll be showing you which individuals are booking rooms on particular floors. Are people from one location booking rooms in another location because they are the nicer, more modern rooms? You'll be able to dive into all the meeting room insights to see who's doing what, where, and when on a room by room basis. We'll also be adding calendar-based policies, where, using my example of my meeting with Nikolai, I can, through a policy, move the room or move the appointment from the room that it was booked into a new room that's more appropriate for the two of us. And that will be automatically done. We can then send an email to the organizer that says, we've moved your room because the room that you have previously allocated is too large, and we feel that this particular room is more appropriate. Again, just getting a better use of the real estate in the organization. While we're working with calendars and we're having a look at locations and rooms and availability, we will also be adding a who's in dashboard. There's lots of these solutions in the marketplace. It just makes perfect sense to embed that type of functionality into Patronum, where you can see exactly who from your team, from your department, from your organization is in the office based on their Google Workspace settings. And then also, just expanding through, one of the other areas that we get a lot of requests about is identifying and locating and managing orphaned appointments that have been created, sent about the organization, but those appointments now have no owner, and so they can't be modified. We're going to give you visibility over those particular appointments. Okay, the last particular feature that we're going to be talking about is our multi-domain management. Again, this is like a long-term goal of ours, and it's really targeted at those Google Workspace administrators and partners who will need to manage multiple Google Workspace domains. We're already using this technology internally from a support perspective. We want to provide that level of engagement to our customers so that they will be able to add multiple domains to one Patronum console and therefore manage multiple organizations through one interface. Obviously, there are a number of security things that we need to consider, and we also need to look at how we run policies at a central level, but also allow policies to be run at a local level as well. So our vision is to be able to create a policy that can run across all the organizations, whether that's from a central email signature perspective, or we have individual policies on a domain by domain point of view. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our presentation now, but before we go, just want to tell you about some non-technical or non-product related things that we are currently running at the moment, and those are our community and our roundtables. So the roundtables, we've hosted a few to date. They are specifically talking about the product roadmap, features that people are using, how particular customers are using those particular features, and more importantly to us, our strategy moving forward with regards to product direction as well as pricing. One of the things that we are very passionate about is the price of Patronum. From a US dollar perspective, we are $8. We've been $8 since we very first launched the product. And we believe that we provide great value to our customers, and we want to continue engaging with customers to make sure that we have the price point exactly right. We will not move our price without having an open discussion with our customers. So we're going through conversations with customers about product direction, pricing strategies, and all those kind of things. And then lastly, we are bringing together Google Workspace administrators in a local community. So that will be starting in February, where we will be launching our Google get together, let's call it a hangout, and we will have Google Workspace administrators from our customers, from Google, from all over the world, talking about things such as how they manage their Google Workspace environment. It's not going to be Patronum specific. It will be general around workspace management, things like using GAM, things such as AppScript, and other elements of the workspace environment that are important to administrators. I get a feeling that AI is going to play a very strong part of those particular conversations since Google has released its AI features and bundled them into Workspace. So again, we're really excited with this community that we are starting. And if you are interested in either helping host one of the communities or getting involved in one of our roadmaps, please drop me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can get you involved in one of our next either roadmaps or get you involved on the community session. So with that, if you'd like to book an appointment with us, if you're not a customer of Patronum and you'd like to have a demo, go to the URL below, click on the schedule meeting. You can have a chat with myself. I've got colleagues here who are super experienced when it comes to Google Workspace and Patronum. But more importantly, if you are a customer, please feel free to drop us a meeting request. We can go over all these features and what it means to you and help you better deploy those particular features. We're not like other organizations who charge for an onboarding session. We believe that by making you understand our platform better, you become a much better customer to us. So with that, I thank you very much for your time and wish you a very good day.